Okay, hello, welcome everybody to this webinar. Today we're going to be discussing holistic fitness and how to build a nourishing relationship with movement. My name is Mags. I'm head of integration at Colibri Garden. At Colibri Garden, we provide experiences with sacred medicines here in Santa Elena, just outside of Medellin, Colombia. I'm a plant medicine integration coach. I help to facilitate the ceremonies and the retreats with Colibri Garden, and I'm also a writer focused on education around psychedelics and sacred medicines. Today, we have an amazing discussion ahead of us with Lacey White. So, as a yoga teacher, psychedelic integration coach, and holistic health guide, Lacey is an advocate for embodied wellness and deep connection as a tool for personal and community healing. Through her various offerings, she helps individuals who feel out of alignment with their bodies, the earth, and their relations. With love and reverence for sacred medicines, Lacey lends her support to projects supporting the ethical education of psychedelics, such as Entheonation, Lamps, and Epic. You can learn more about Lacey on her website or on holisticfit.life or on Instagram and Facebook at Holistic Fit Guide. And we're also going to share these links at the end so you can get in touch with Lacey and in the follow-up email. So welcome, Lacey. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Of course, Max. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So to those of you here on the call live and those of you watching the recording, before we get started with the discussion, Lacey is going to take us through a grounding exercise.
Yeah, I think that coming into a discussion around the body and moving the body calls for a sense of being in our body. Many of us live in cultures that take us out of the body and into the mind. And especially at the end of the day, on a Monday, when we may be caught up in the day that just passed us, let's all just take a moment, whether you're here live with us or watching the recording at a future time. Let's just find our seat. Easy, simple start to our practice today. Just get comfortable. However that looks and feels like for you. Whether you're sitting down or lying down, begin to tune into your connection with the earth. Envisioning roots reaching down from beneath you, holding you firmly and securely to the earth beneath. Allowing yourself to be held as we prepare to greet the many parts of our body. So beginning with the feet, we'll be moving up to the crown of our head. Just begin by placing your awareness on the soles of your feet. You can maybe give the toes a wiggle. And as we take this journey throughout the body, notice if there are any places that you're especially holding on to, any tension or tightness. And send your breath to these areas. Moving to the ankles, maybe rolling them out a bit. And then greeting the lower legs, beginning with the shins, the front of your lower leg, traveling around to the back, to the calf muscles. And then allowing the awareness to drift up to the knees. Taking a loving pause here to tune into any sensations that are arising. If you find your mind drifting, just offer yourself gentleness, gently bringing it back to the knees. And then moving up to the thigh muscles. Maybe even bringing your hands to your thighs, making contact here, just to help really ground your attention, your awareness to this part of your body. And then up to the hips. Again, maybe bringing your hands to your hips to make that contact. And at this juncture, explore if you can deepen your breath, drawing it further and further down into the belly. Perhaps you even direct that breath to the hips, drawing it that deeply down, filling all the way up. And exhaling with an audible sigh, letting all of it go. Again, let's take a deep inhale and open the mouth. Exhale it all out. And continuing our journey of embodied awareness, bringing the attention to the low belly, to this area that you've just drawn your breath into. Continue breathing into this space and feel your belly push out as you inhale, filling up. And as you exhale, feel the muscles of the core contracting, releasing the air, closing the space. And let's stay here for a few breaths, continuing to really focus on drawing the belly out, filling it all the way up with each in-breath. Many of us may have grown up in cultures that taught us to suck in or make yourself small, contract. And so, really wanting to take this sacred moment to fill up and allow your belly to rise as you draw the life-giving air in. Taking one more round, maybe this time, if your hands aren't already there, bring the hands to the low belly and feel this expansion. And then allowing your awareness to drift a bit higher up to the chest. On your next breath in, see if you can fill the chest after you've filled the belly, taking in just one more sip of air. And open the mouth, sigh it all out. With this awareness in the chest, maybe you notice your heart. Maybe you're recognizing some tension. Just continue to send your breath there. If your body's calling to move a certain way, let it. I'm finding that as I'm focusing on the shoulders, my shoulders are kind of taking turns drawing back. I just returned from some travels and definitely feeling the tightness there. So wherever you're feeling tension or tightness, just keep sending the breath there. And then allowing the awareness to travel down the arms, Give the fingers a wiggle. Traveling all the way to the very ends of the fingertips. And then back toward the rest of the hand. Up the arms to the shoulders. And then bring your awareness to your neck. Another space we hold a lot of tension. So maybe find some gentle movement here that feels good in your body. Maybe that's moving your right ear to your right shoulder, and then over to the other side. Maybe it's nodding your head yes. Or shaking your head no. Maybe inviting some rolls here, honoring your body's limits. And then allowing the awareness to move up the neck to the jaw. Maybe try moving your jaw around, opening and closing the mouth. And then bringing this awareness toward the center of your face, across your cheeks, to the tip of your nose. Breathing in, noticing the air, drawing in through the nose. And open the mouth, let it out. Loading the awareness up to the third eye space between the eyebrows. See if you can invite a softening here. And then make your way up to the top of the head, to the crown. If you're sitting down, see if you can find just one more bit of length in the spine. And if you're laying down, see if you can do the same. Now that we've gone through this process of greeting the many parts of our bodies, inviting our breath there, take a moment to offer your body some gratitude. You may direct this gratitude toward a specific part of your body that has been serving you lately or has served you in the past. Or maybe it's your body in general. Our bodies really do so much for us in every single second. And it can be really powerful medicine to thank your body for what it does, just the way it does. Continuing to express this gratitude. And once you are complete in expressing this gratitude to your body and its many parts, ask your body what it needs from you. What does your body need from you in this moment? What does your body need from you these days? Maybe more recently, your body has been craving something, calling out for something. Take a moment to really receive this answer. And in your own time, there's no rush here. Once you have your answer, start to float the eyes open if you have them closed, landing back in the space. If you have a piece of paper nearby, you may write down any answers that you received from your body, or write down any of those feelings of gratitude that you would like to express. Thank you for your presence during this practice. You're welcome to share in the chat what answer came up for you, for those of us who are live. Mags, I see that your body is asking for softness, gentle movement, and not being sat down for too long. Yeah, my body is asking for the same.
That was so beautiful, Lacey. Thank you so much for taking us through that.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody else feels called to share in the chat, please go ahead.
No worries, Suzanne. Thank you for being here. Oh, I see a Vilo, massage, stretch, improve nutrition, rest more, dance. I'm glad you enjoyed the gratitude piece. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Oh. I'm going to shift my lighting real quick. I can tell the sun is
Sure.
about to just really find my eyes.
Sure, go for it. And perhaps if anybody is watching the recording and did this exercise, I know we're going to post this on YouTube. So if anybody who's watching this on YouTube, we'd love to see in the comments as well what came up for you during the meditation. Okay, thank you so much, Lacey. That was a beautiful, beautiful start to this discussion. And yeah, I think I would love to now move on to digging into this topic that is just so important, and I think something that that we need to talk about more, especially as cultural conditioning shifts away from this idea of fitness and movement and exercise as being something that we do to look a certain way rather than to feel a certain way, and just kind of the exploration around all of the beautiful emotional, spiritual, energetic benefits, as well as obviously the physical side of it. So to start things off, I'd love to ask you if you can tell us a little bit about your journey and what led you to become a holistic fitness instructor and health coach.
Mhm. Yeah, I've been feeling a lot into just this moment is a really fun one for me in that it seems like all of my interests, all these paths that I've been following are really converging all in a single space. So it's been really beautiful to see that, and it does make the story of the journey a bit difficult to tell because I'm like, okay, there's so many different tangents to follow. But I can say that my interest in wellness and health really came from first my love of movement. So growing up, I had a brother who did a lot of sports, and so I grew up dreaming of getting into all the sports. And so that was my entrance into movement. And as I've been reflecting on this path in preparation for today's event, and thinking about how my perceptions of movement and health have evolved over the journey, it's interesting because with the sports came the idea that movement was all about performance. And it was to, moving to achieve. And that concept, I think, really held on. Um, and then as I grew older, started reaching points in my life where I was just really insecure, or especially feeling the pressure of societal expectations around how to look. Um, then movement became sort of a punishment. It was like, okay, if I am going to treat myself to this food, or if I'm going to enjoy this or enjoy that, then movement was the way to uh, right all my wrongs in a way. And it really took some of the joy out of it. And it was a long, long journey of coming back to that. I pretty much let go of movement practices completely when I was in college. I was pre-medicine, wanting to help with health. Um, and my I had released movement practices, feeling like I didn't have time to take care of myself during that period of life. And I was also learning about health through the lens of like medication management. And so it was very much not rooted in the holistic piece of it, but rather looking at, okay, you want to look a certain way, so you move. And then that's like one thing, that's the aesthetic piece. And then you have these conditions and you take medications, and it's all about finding the right kind of balance of medications. And so my understanding of what health was, and my absolute lack of embodying any holistic health principles, kind of put me into a place where I was really questioning my path. And I was like, what am I doing if I want to help people with their health? And I am the antithesis of health and just miserable. Um, and I will say that the spiritual piece really unlocked a lot for me. And that came through two different sort of catalysts that really changed the way that I viewed all of this. One being psychedelics, one being yoga. These were two practices or experiences that really blew open the way that I understood myself and my body, and connected to movement again. And so during the pandemic, I was looking for which way I wanted to pivot, after deciding that I didn't want to be pre-med anymore. I didn't want to go to medical school and become a psychiatrist and push medications. And I was like, well, I have quite a bit of experience with movement. So I became a personal trainer, and I had my pre-medicine background. And then I was learning about yoga and doing a nutrition program, learning about psychedelic integration. And so in the last few years is really when all the pieces have just clumped together. And yeah, has become part of my vision of holistic fitness.
Thank you so much for sharing that. What a journey. And yeah, I definitely um, identify with what you were saying about absorbing those societal ideals and using movement and exercise and fitness as a punishment for eating certain foods or wanting to look a certain way. And I'm really excited to dig a little bit more deeply into that. Next, I'd love to ask you, and you've touched on this already, but specifically holistic fitness, which is the name of your brand, of your practice. I'd love to know what it means to you and what role has this played in your own journey of healing and growth.
Mm. Yeah, this has been kind of a fun one to play with because holistic health is a concept that it's like it makes sense intuitively to me anyways. Um, and yet there were a few times when I was asked about it by people who didn't quite understand or who had their own misconceptions about what it was, that I started to get really curious about the language around it. And so fitness is a word that we hear a lot about in terms, I think it shows up a lot in the world of exercise. And I feel it's often thought of in terms of like performance or aesthetics. Like those are the two kind of main pieces that feel we've societally attached to the word fitness. Um, and then calling upon my biology education in college, and I'm thinking about like evolutionary biology. Fitness is fit. To be fit means that you can survive and reproduce. And so it's a very different idea. And um, and the way that I hear that sort of in the context of the modern world is hearing fitness as a way of begetting life. So if to be fit is to survive and reproduce in evolutionary biology, then to be fit is to continue life, continue your own life, continue future generations of life. Um, and so I like to think about fitness as far as feeling alive. Um, I can think of times when I was going to the gym several times a week, or I looked a certain way and I thought I was fit because of those things, or I thought I wasn't fit because I was missing the mark on those things. Um, but I think that the measure shouldn't be in the exact things that we're doing, but what is arising as a result of that. Are you able to live more with the practices that you have? I think that's really what holistic fitness means to me, is the ability to live and to show up for others, supporting life in a collective sense. And um, I did a workshop a few months ago, earlier this year, I think, where it was a workshop on co-creating holistic fitness, um, co-creating the definition of holistic fitness. And so we went through a series of different prompts and curious questioning, and we came up with a sort of graphic that brought in all the elements of what fitness looks like. And I can share it here as well. Yeah, let me pull it up real quick. I won't go through it all, but just to show you just how
Sure.
multifaceted.
Please go ahead.
Computer's running just a bit slow. right, let's see if we can get it to pull up, and if not, then we can move on and maybe come back to it later. Are you seeing this, Max?
Yeah. Okay, I see it now. Well,
Yeah, so you can see there's a lot of things here, and movement is like this one piece, active finding movement. Um, and so there's a bit of a theme with the different chakras going on, and drawing in both the personal and relational. So like I said, I won't get into it completely, but just showing this communal exploration that I've had with a group, looking at what does it mean to be fit in a holistic way. And it's so multifaceted. Thank you for that little tangent.
that's beautiful. I love that. And I'd love it if perhaps we could share, like when we post the recording
Yeah.
on our we'll post it on our blog. If we could share a screen cap of that, that would be amazing, because I just love it's yeah, it's you're so right. It's such a word that people like when you think about, okay, this person's fit, like you just imagine them like them doing bicep curls in the gym or like running marathons. But it's so much more expansive than that. And I feel like um it's so important that we tune in to, okay, how do we actually feel in our bodies? How do we feel in ourselves, in our soul, in our minds? Because, okay, and I'm speaking from personal experience, you can go and do CrossFit 5 times a week, but if you're like going to this class and you finish and you feel like you got kicked down the stairs every single day, to the point where for the rest of the day you're actually too tired to concentrate on work, and you can't even like muster up the energy to go for a walk or to like do something in the evening, because you've been forced to do so many like cleans and burpees for like an hour in the morning. Like, is that actually, and no shade on CrossFit, like it was great for the period of time that I did it, but I felt like it was just, yeah, it was pushing me personally to a point where like it was actually taking away from the rest of my life rather than
Mm.
adding to it. And it's obviously like a lot of these styles of exercise, they help us build our fitness level and like cardiovascular fitness and like physical strength and stuff. But it's all about finding that balance and like really tuning into what feels right for you and like knowing like when you're crossing that threshold.
Mm.
Um, so kind of like with that in mind about what I was saying about not just being focused on like I mean, obviously this is kind of like a fallacy that there's a split between the mind and the body anyway, but not just focusing on like the physical muscle building or like the performance, like you were saying, or like the aesthetics. How can different types of movement support us in emotional and spiritual healing as well as in physical health?
Yeah, there's a lot in this one, because of course there's so many different ways that you can move your body, and they all come with their own unique benefits, spiritual, physical, mental. Um, I've been really leaning into yoga recently, so that's the first that comes to mind. Is I teach yoga, and the mind-body connection there is very strong. And in my yoga teacher training, studying the philosophy piece of yoga and learning that what yoga is as a practice, a lot of us have come into understanding yoga um, from the perspective of movement, but that's just one small piece of what the practice of yoga really is. And the practice of yoga is the practice of stilling the mind. And so whether that's with movement or without movement, that's the key piece there. And we're stilling the mind to be able to access that inner voice, access to the divine, access to whatever framework is the appropriate fit for all of us. But really just helping us to settle the mind so that we can see what lies beyond it. So I think of a pond where if you're trudging through the pond and there's dirt being kicked up, all you see is that dirt. And so we can think of the dirt floating around as kind of these thoughts that run our mind, these patterns that we find ourselves in. And yoga is the practice of allowing the mud to settle and the water to become clear again, so you can see what lies underneath. And So that's such a crucial component of um, mental health, spiritual health, I believe. Um, and of course, physical health as well. You're moving the body, you're connecting with the breath, which is a really powerful tool. Um, and thinking of emotional health as well. Yoga has a really beautiful way of helping us access emotions that we may be holding on to. And so I've had this happen for me in really restorative, like yin style yoga classes where you're holding a pose for a long time and thoughts are just kind of coming up that may seem random, um, but may very well be connected with the position that I'm in that moment or the body part that is being worked, or just another body part completely. Things just have a way of coming up when you give them space to. Um, There's also more vigorous style of movement that once you reach the end and get to the shavasana phase or the meditation piece of the yoga class, that's another time where things really tend to come up. I've had many shavasanas where I find myself in tears, and I may know why, I may not know why. Um, and then more recently, I've been leaning into a primal flow yoga practice, which is just a really, really fun, energetic way of moving the body, and it ends with a fascia release. And so things come up so consistently for me here. Um, and so those are some ways that yoga can help bring things to the surface to be processed. They can help you still the mind, access deep emotions that maybe you've been holding on to. And then, of course, there's strength training. You mentioned CrossFit. And while we think of the benefits of those as being purely physical, they can also, it also can promote endorphin release and releasing tension, which can come with the releasing of emotions as well. There can be an element of empowerment or confidence that comes with strength building, maybe even some grounding. That's another type of movement. There is also dance and just like free movement that's just it's not structured. You're just moving how your body wants to move in the moment, which can really bring some stuff up to the surface as well. Can help you recognize where maybe you're holding on to some rigidity and offer you the space to work through that, to promote mental health, spiritual understanding of your own self. Um, let's see. There's more cardio-based movement, aerobic, again, with the endorphin release that comes there. There's a quieting of the mind, or can be, and some relief from anxiety. There's functional movement where you're really looking at specific activities that kind of help you throughout the day, and that can bring with you a sense of confidence and empowerment. There's walking, which just has a number of emotional and spiritual benefits as well. I know I'm just naming off a bunch of these, but there's one more that I want to say, which is also in the non-movement or in the resting. So much of the benefits that we might achieve in movement is really integrated and grounded in the times of rest and recovery. And when we move slowly, we can get a little bit more intentional about what we're trying to target. And yeah, underlying all of these is really just the connection with the breath. And I think I probably could have just left it at that as well, that it helps you connect with the breath, which is supportive of nervous system regulation, um, connecting to that inner capital S self, connecting with a higher power, connecting with your intuition and listening to what your body really needs with the breath. So yeah, there's so many options out there, and in the work that I do with clients, that's why there's a need to get really clear on what the person is specifically looking for and how we can personalize it, rather than feeling the pressure from the world to do all the things. Like you have to practice yoga 3 times a week and then strength train and cardio and off days. And people get really excited to fill their schedule up with all the things.
Yeah, that's me. Try and fill my schedule up with all the things. Yeah, I love all of that. No, I think it's really helpful as well to just really consider like these different types of movement and all of the benefits they bring, and also as much as it's not about filling your schedule up with all the things and kind of ticking it off as a to-do list without really tuning into what your body's needing in the moment, like just understanding that there's such a range of types of movement, and it doesn't always have to be like going and doing like a super hard strength workout or like running a 10K or whatever it is. Like there have been moments where it's like, oh, I plan to work out today, but like for whatever reason, just kind of like general physical fatigue, hormone levels, like whatever it is, like I just need to rest. But there are ways to still introduce like a little bit of gentle, soft movement in that as well, and still gain those benefits, which is something that I love about yoga. And it's so funny that you said that about the yin yoga, because that's the kind of yoga that we get a teacher to come and do for us in our ayahuasca retreats.
Mm.
So between the first and the second ceremony, like a couple of hours before we head into the second ceremony, she comes in and she teaches a yin yoga class. And Ivilo can also confirm like the energy that gets moved in that class. And she's like getting us to do like pigeon pose for like
Mm.
15 minutes. And it's just so much coming out like with that hip release. So yeah, I absolutely feel you on that. And just kind of like, yeah, really tuning into like the thoughts and even like memories and emotions that come up when we're really able to like slow it down and get really intentional with it. I love all of that as well.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yin between two ceremonies sounds just so beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. Um, so for those of us who have had a relationship or perhaps still have a relationship with exercise that's more centered around these things that we've been talking about around, you know, for women, it's oftentimes being smaller, being leaner. For men, oftentimes it's like building muscle and like getting bigger, or for both men and women, it can also be really focused on losing fat and burning calories, which is something that really grinds my gears when I see all of these like fat burning exercises or calorie burning exercises. And I'm like, but we need calories. But yeah, just kind of centered around those like that societal conditioning, those body ideals that are ultimately not healthy for us to be adopting. What advice do you have to kind of like move towards this more like intuitive, holistic approach to fitness and leave behind this
Mhm.
programming that we've been subject to?
Yeah. I think that you used the word programming. So I think that what comes through for me most clearly is the deprogramming piece. And of course, that's easier said than done. Um, and so I'll say practicing discernment and recognizing what's yours and what isn't yours, as far as beliefs or stories that you're holding on to, beliefs that you maybe hold around what your body should look like, um, getting really clear on things like that, and things like you mentioned, Mags, around calorie burning and fat loss. These sort of oh, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Like hot topic words that get used over and over again and become so overused and so cliche that they're really like locked into the brain as like, okay, that's what I'm trying to do. So people who may have no idea what a calorie is like, yeah, I don't know what calories are, but I know I'm trying to minimize them. And like you said, like we need we need them. Calories are fuel. That is what keeps us alive. And it's all just like that fine discernment piece of recognizing the beliefs that you're holding, getting curious about them, and finding clarity around whether they're yours, because not all the stories that you're holding on to were written by you. Not all of them are true. Um, there's a person named Byron Katie who offers a really beautiful process that she calls the work, which I think can be really helpful in this particular situation. And it's a series of 4 questions. We'll see if I remember them all in the moment, but it starts with, if you have a thought that you feel is holding you back or causing you suffering or making you feel negatively about your body, you write out your statement, write out this belief or thought that's lingering, and then ask yourself if it's true. That's the first step. A lot of times you may find, oh, that's not true, and kind of move on to the next part of the process. Or if the answer is yes, the follow-up question is, can you really know it to be true? And this one can kind of really help catch some stickiness as far as what you're telling yourself about is true. And another question is, who would you be without this thought? And so if you could release this thought of, I have to look this certain way or have to have this quality, who would you be without the thought, is a step toward liberating yourself from it. And so I definitely recommend looking at Byron Katie's work if you have some thoughts like that you're really looking to untangle and support in the programming process. She has an online worksheet that I believe is called the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet, because it's all about working through this particular series of questions. And so you can kind of ease into it by starting with a statement about a neighbor. That's the idea of where the title came from. So yeah, discernment, deconditioning, recognizing which beliefs are not yours and exploring how you can release them, and 100% infusing the entire process with self-compassion and gratitude. Offer yourself grace. Evalo, you mentioned earlier that you appreciated the piece of the meditation where we thanked our body. And I think that that's something that we don't do enough. It's easy to get caught up in the ways that we feel our body isn't serving us when we're operating from those programmed ideas of what a body should do or should be. But when you think about the fact that we don't have to give any thought to all the electrical signals going off in our heart that are telling our heart how fast to beat, which is driving blood throughout the body without us having to direct where it moves. And this is just like one small huge thing that your body does without you having to even think about it. And so in moments when you're feeling a bit down on yourself or having trouble accessing the self-compassion, start with gratitude, thanking your body for what it does. It got you out of bed today, and moving from there. And don't feel like you have to do it alone either. I think that there's a lot of sometimes shame that comes up in these conversations, and especially about the body, where it's this idea of, yeah, I'm working on my body, but I'm going to do it in isolation so that no one has to see me in this part of the process. They can just see me on the other side. And our culture's overemphasis on individuality can be really harmful and leaving us to all feel alone in things that are actually quite largely experienced.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Lacey, and thank you for calling out the shame component, which I think is really, really important. Like, especially, I think for all of us, but especially for us women, there is so much shame wrapped up in yeah, just having this conversation and just bringing to light a lot of the ideas that we've absorbed around how our bodies should look, and maybe even still carrying a lot of that conditioning. So I think yeah, for me personally, just having conversations like these is so helpful, and just really speaking to friends and members of the community, and being open about it, because the more we shine a light on something, the less shame it carries for us internally. So I appreciate you highlighting that as well. And I love the practice of just thanking the body and recognizing everything that it does for us, which is so much.
Mhm. Yeah. And one more thing, one more piece on the shame, just to really emphasize that um, it's a long journey as well. I've done so much work to nurture my relationship with my body after a really long time of having a really negative relationship with it, and a lot of shame. If I dipped out of shame, it was like into pride of like, okay, yeah, this is what it's supposed to be, doing all that I can to maintain this, and then I fall out of it and it's back into the shame. And so I've done a lot of work around that, and of course help other people in that. But it's so insidious of an idea and just so all over the place, especially with social media, that it takes time to fully shed that. I just got back from a vacation with my partner, and we treated ourselves a lot. And there were days where I looked very different than I had been used to looking. And I had that moment of like, oh, that shame alarm kind of go off, and then sitting with it and like, okay, I know I'm okay. I know that it doesn't matter. All of this is temporary. I know that my partner loves me for who I am and has nothing to do with the body and all these sorts of things that I know. And yet in the moment, I have to remind myself of them because I'm like, so it's a journey that we'll all continue to take. And it's okay to have moments like that where you're like, I thought I worked through all this. Things will continue to come up, and that's life. That's the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm personally still very much in that place of still having those reactions, but it's like a whole lifetime of just internalizing those messages. And I feel like especially um kind of like our generation and and older, but like I feel like especially our generation with all like the fashion magazines. Like I don't know about you, but like I grew up and in my household there were always just like stacks of magazines that were either like um yeah, it was just always like commenting on like celebrities' bodies, basically.
Mhm.
So like either someone's put on weight, so we're gonna like post all these photos of her because she's put on weight, or either someone's too skinny, so we're gonna post all these photos of her being too skinny. And it's just, yeah, it's a lot of stuff that we've absorbed as women, but also men over the years,
Mhm.
that it's like you said, it's gonna take a while and it's a process to unravel it. So just having grace with ourselves.
Yeah.
So I want to move on to the next question. I'd love it if you could explain to us some practical steps that we can take to build a nourishing relationship with movement that is building on everything that we've been talking about so far, that comes from that place of self-love and not self-punishment.
Mhm. Yeah. So nourishing a relationship with movement that's grounded in self-love and not self-punishment. Um, Clarity around what it is that you truly desire or need is a big one. I have a mentor of mine who, Mags, it's Heather Love. Um, we've had some conversations around root desire and superficial desires, and actually the specific example that she shared with me is really relevant to this conversation. It was around when the Barbie movie came out, and so of course there's all sorts of body things tied up in that movie, that brand, the idea. And um, she was saying one person might feel the symptomatic desire, or desire presenting itself as, I want to look like Barbie. And then you ask yourself, okay, and why? And you say, oh, well, Barbie meets all the societal expectations of whatever. And then, okay, and why is that? And why do you care about that? It's like, okay, well, I care about that because I want to feel connected with people. And then digging deeper and deeper, and it gets to this place of just like looking for acceptance. And so I think that when you're exploring what movement practices might be best for you, um, as much clarity as you can on the why is really important so that you're not doing all these things to try to look like someone else, but rather looking to truly nourish your body in the way that it wants to move. Um, Another piece of advice that I would share is to simplify. There's a lot of information overload, especially around the things that we should or shouldn't be doing when it comes to health and taking care of our bodies. There's a lot of conflicting messages, and it can get so confusing. So I think as much as you can, simplify and lean into what it is that you enjoy. If you hate running with a passion, but you're like, I gotta get my my aerobic fitness in, find another way to do it. Maybe that's yoga, maybe that's chasing your dogs around the yard, chasing your kids. If you are um yeah, I'm even thinking of like meditation. If you're struggling to meditate for 30 minutes, but maybe you love to go on walks outside, like can you pause on your walk and just do a 1 minute meditation? So that's one way to help us get out of these shame spirals, is to stop feeling like all of our journeys have to look exactly the same way, and instead simplify, lean into the things that you enjoy, and that will make reaching your goals and setting clearer goals so much easier because you're not trying to navigate all of the information in the world. And also patience. I had a therapist share something with me once that was really helpful, even though it was so simple, but it was so profound, and that I think about it a lot. And it was around this journey that I was having around this particular tendency of mine that I was trying to work through. And I shared with my therapist that it was really frustrating because I'd been doing the work for so long, but I hadn't met the end goal that I had in mind. And she shared that just because you're not at the end goal doesn't mean you're not moving further along every day. And so I invite you to perhaps bring that in with the body as well. You, if you are on a journey of finding the right uh, sort of system with movement and wellness, um, just be patient and know that every step that you take to better understand your body and show up for yourself is a step in the right direction, and you don't have to know where you're going to be on your way.
That's so beautiful. I love that. I think we lose sight of that, just constantly thinking about reaching the end destination. But so many of these things, it's not about reaching a destination, it's about the
Mhm.
journey. I
Yeah.
love that. And something's just kind of popped up that I'd love to get your thoughts on. So I feel like everybody these days wears like these fitness trackers and the watches and like the aura rings, and it's all about like counting the steps and, the minutes of whatever it is, in certain zones or whatever it is. Like with the work that you do with clients, and potentially like for somebody who's on this journey of like building a more holistic, nourishing relationship with movement and fitness, would you recommend using these, or would you have any tips for people that do recommend to not get like so caught up and attached to those numbers?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Yeah, I think everybody's different, and some people really enjoy that quantitative piece and can respond to it without being overcome by it. I know that I would tend to really think about it and try to hit all the marks. And so that's why I personally choose not to um, wear any of those wearables that sort of
Mhm.
track that information. Um, but yeah, I'm thinking back to an earlier point in our conversation, talking about the definition of holistic fitness and begetting life, I guess, is what's coming through for me. Is I I tend in my work with clients much more toward the qualitative than the quantitative. So it's less about me prescribing numbers, which is very much like the fitness, or not the fitness, the exercise personal training piece of my education would tell me to sit down with you, write out all the numbers, figure out the goal numbers, and then we're working toward those numbers. And there's a place for that, especially for people who are looking to, I don't know, maybe perform like a triathlon or something, where they need that targeted focus. But I think if you don't necessarily need hard goals, I think it's really beautiful to get into the practice of listening to your body and what it needs. And yeah, opening up that intuitive channel of, maybe I didn't hit 12,000 steps today, but I moved my body. I gave myself room to kind of like free dance for a bit. Um, I stretched, whatever it is. Trusting yourself to find what feels good, um, without the attachment to the numbers. And like I said, there's a place for them. Um, yeah, I'd be curious to know a person who's working in this realm who does practice with them. I'd love to learn more about how it can be used in a way that is um, serving for the client and not overloading. Yeah, good question though.
Yeah, I think it's a fine balance. And it's two sides of the coin always, like, are we getting attached to these numbers and then punishing ourselves and feeling shame if we don't meet them? Or is it actually like useful to have like certain goals and to feel that sense of accomplishment when we meet them, but then not kind of seeing it as the be all and end all of the movement that we do throughout the day. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I wear a Fitbit, and to be honest, like I think I started wearing one like 3 or 4 years ago, and when I first got it, I was like so into like all of the numbers, and I was like constantly checking it and stuff. And now, like I honestly don't even check it. I just use it for the time. Like I just use it as a watch. So it's interesting to see how my relationship with that has changed over the years. And I just have, if anybody who is here live has a question, feel free to drop it in the chat and we'll get to it. I just have one more question which just popped up as I'm sitting in this desk chair and looking at my computer screen. I'm wondering, like, what do you do as somebody who also works online? And I imagine is forced to kind of like spend time, doing work at a computer throughout the day. What do you do, or like what advice do you have generally just to try and keep the body moving and not get so stiff whilst working online, which is the case for so many of us?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And it can be really challenging, especially when, yeah, I mean, working online looks so differently for everybody. And some people may have access to places where they could step out and maybe go for a quick walk. Maybe others don't. For me, it's, I have to continually remind myself to shift out of the head into the body. Um, or at least be able to pick up signals that my body is sending out when I'm not in my body. So one of them is I may find that my hands are clenching, and noticing that I'm like, oh, all of me is clenching. And so then I'll soften for a bit and I'll get up from my computer and just kind of move in a way that feels good. It looks, for me, it's a lot of like kind of shoulder stuff, because the arms are up when I'm typing on the computer. Um, I think that if you are noticing a certain part of your body where you're feeling a lot of tension, spending time with that part, getting curious about it. Sometimes it might be obvious, like, oh, okay, it's the space between my shoulders because I've been locked into this position all day. And then getting curious about how I can counter it. So exploring the opposite of poses. So I might start to draw my shoulder blades together, find some movement there. Um, it's it's really just opening yourself up to be curious about what's going on in the body and permission to play around. Because I can't tell you which moves or which practices are going to be best for you in your workday. The best I can do is invite you to find your own answers and tune into the body.
Yeah, thank you. Something I've been finding helpful is just having my yoga mat just rolled out.
Mm.
Just like maybe use it in the morning and I just like leave it there. And then if I want to just like get into child's pose for like 30 seconds, I can just go and do it. And it's like very easy. It doesn't always have to be like a 10-20 minute practice even.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And that's such a good point too, because I just recently shifted the way that I had my office laid out. And now I have a rug in the middle, that is not, there's nothing on it. And I get up so much more during the day to stretch because I have this little space for it that's super accessible. Um, and then I'm not as on top of it as I try to be. But I also try to at least every hour or 2 hours, getting up and taking a break, even if your mind doesn't need the break, your body very well might. Um, Sometimes if I don't have the time to really get up and go on a proper walk, I'll just get up and walk around my house and like go try to find one of my cats, or maybe go put a couple things away that I see sitting out. Just anything that gets some blood flow, some different movement going.
Yeah, that's a great one. And watering the plants, I think, is a great one as well. If
Oh,
you have
yes.
plants or if you have a garden.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's really good to find those like kill two birds with one stone things where you
Mm-hmm.
can do something functional and also take it as a break.
Yeah.
Um,
And just getting out too and
hmm,
sitting in the sun, maybe laying on the grass. Sometimes what the body needs in moments of stress isn't a lot of extra movement, but rather just the chance to really be still. So
hmm.
I like to just go lay in the grass and feel myself being held by the ground. And I can feel myself like shifting into a different mode.
Yeah, absolutely. So, does anybody have any questions for Lacey? We're going to wrap things up soon here. I want to make sure that I ask you about your offerings, and we can share all of the links in the chat, and we'll also be sharing them along with the recording as well. But just want to open in case anybody here has any further questions or anything they would like to share, any reflections. Okay, I'll take that as a no.
Mhm.
So Lacey, please tell us, what do you have going on at the moment? What kind of offerings do you have? How can people find you if they want to work with you?
Yeah, so I'm located in Santa Clarita, California. So I have a number of in-person events that I host both here as well as in Los Angeles. Tend to be yoga or meditation events, um, sound bath experiences that I team up with friends on. Um, and I also offer online events as well. Mags and I just recently hosted our first Process and Flow event, which is bringing in yoga and integration circle together. Um, I yeah, I offer other online yoga classes and things like that. As far as working specifically with a single person or with groups, I offer one-on-one yoga. I offer personal training, although very often people who come to me for the personal training aspect, we find our way to the more holistic approach together. And yeah, I offer an 8-week journey if anyone is interested, that is all around the things that we've been talking about today. So it's all about embodiment, learning to tune into the subtle messages of the body and nurture and heal our relationships with our bodies so that we can find sustainable habits, ways of living that serve our body's true needs, our root desires, and help us tap into our inherent wholeness. And so this program I've run both one-on-one online, I've run it in person, and I've also run it as a group program as well. And so I have a link to the program brochure that I can share here. And in it, you'll notice that I do offer it one-on-one for people who are looking for a more personalized approach. So if you have very specific needs or goals or injuries that you're working with, that may be a better option for you. Or if you're a person who is tired of going through this journey alone and would like to do it as a group for that added support and love and accountability, I offer that as well.
Amazing. That sounds absolutely incredible. Yeah, please share the link in the chat, and I'll also make sure that it's uploaded with the recording too.
Cool.
And I also have here your website and your Instagram. Beautiful.
Thank you, Max.
Thank you so much, Lacey. I'm also just going to share our Instagram and website in the chat for anybody who is interested as well.
I popped my email address in there as well, if anyone would like
Perfect.
to connect.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Lacey, this was so, so, so beautiful. I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for this discussion. Thank you for all of the wisdom. Thank you for all of the little, yeah, golden nuggets of very thought-provoking, yeah, very, very thought-provoking insights that you shared today. So I really, really appreciate you coming and sharing this with the community. And yeah, we'll make sure obviously to share all of those links so anybody who's watching can get in touch with you. And just wishing those who are here live and those who are watching the recording to have a lovely rest of the day, a lovely rest of the week. Thank you so much. And yeah, see you all
Thank you,
soon.
Max. Always an honor.
Great.
I
Thank you so
appreciate you.
much. You too. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. Goodbye.